She is. I'm doing fine. How about yourself, Chuck?
Pretty good, pretty good. You had an interesting report out. We're going to talk about whatever's on your mind, but a lot of hanky-panky, and that's a very, very nice word to use going on in China, in a certain area, right?
Yeah.
All that has to do with Buddhism?
Well, yeah, it's actually the Chinese Uyghurs who have been sent off to internment camps, re-education camps, and there's more than 1 million of them in these camps up there, and the Chinese are requesting that any of the Chinese Uyghurs that are living in other countries, they're trying to demand, and they're actually been pretty successful in having some of these countries like, European countries and Taiwan and Hong Kong and things like that, sending these Uyghurs back. And in essence, they're starting down the path of genocide, and it's not a very well told story. It's just slowly starting to get out. We have Human Rights Watch that's involved now, but it's something that we ought to be taking note of, especially since President Trump has been meeting with the president of China, and they're negotiating these trade deals. So a lot of these people would like to tag some of this human rights stuff to the trade deals to get the Chinese, to either free these Uyghurs or let them, leave the country and go find safe haven elsewhere.
Kimberly, I guess the obvious question for a lot of people, because they are talking about, Chinese Premier Xi and Trump putting off, or whatever it is, 90 days, I think they're not going to run into this brand new trade deal. But let me ask you this. Do you know if President Trump ever brought up any of this, locking all these people up whenever he talks to them, or do you think it's...
I know that a lot of his advisors, because we know that Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of the State Department, has been involved in this, and there have been a lot of high-level advisors that have also been involved in this. In essence, what they're doing to these Uyghurs, who happen to be Muslim, by the way, and what they're doing to them is it's a communist country, so they're trying to, re-educate them, separate them from their children, and enforce a strict code upon these people, and they live in these horrific conditions like North Koreans do when they send them into prison. So you're seeing this similar situation, probably a little bit greater scale in China, and China does a lot of business around the world, obviously. So this is a situation where there are very high-ranking people within the Trump administration who are talking to the president about this, and it is getting out that this atrocity is taking place in China.
Is the area identified as East Turkestan? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's up in the, it's kind of, they kind of live in a little tiny corridor of China. They really don't go down and travel around the country too much. They kind of keep to themselves. And the best way to kind of, tell people how or what this is similar to is we remember the Kurds in Iraq and in Turkey and all that. This is a similar situation where the Uyghurs also are across a few different countries. And I think that the Chinese are worried that they'll all bond together and they'll want to take land, just as Turkey has always been concerned about the Kurds taking northern Iraq and northern Turkey and into Syria as well, and combining and making themselves their own little country. And on top of that, there's minerals and to be mined in both those type of situations.
Amazing how minerals,
Yeah.
And the Chinese, I know they're getting interested, are already conducting operations in Africa.
Yep. We talk about that a lot here.
Yeah. Pardon? Had to clear my throat there.
Yeah. Well,
everywhere. And then a brand new canal, which I think you also mentioned.
Yep.
They're busy people.
Yeah.
And what we're talking about with this terrible, I guess you could call it ethnic cleansing.
It is ethnic cleansing and genocide, because there are people that are dying, and then what they do is they make a.
Gotta take our break.
Okay.
I know I got you going there. It's Kimberly before
Okay.
K, and it's thekbreport.com. And she is CRS Cut Wilder with my guest Kimberly Dvorak, and as I mentioned before, she is our award-winning reporter, correspondent, CW6 News, San Diego.
boy.
Anyway, I finally got you on it. Still keep going, delay. But beautiful Christmas tree, and the big gift something around your neck and it was flashing. And I said, "What in the world is that?"
Oh, it's my cross.
The cross is
Yes.
flashing at me because we're on the perfect subject when it comes to it.
Yeah.
You know that?
Well, we're talking. I think we're talking about the Uyghurs and what's going on in China and all the different consequences this has. But I think that there's another side of this that most people would not even give the Trump administration credit for on this. Now, Vice President Mike Pence has spoken about the Uyghur plight, and he's said that this administration is determined to fight China to free the Uyghurs, who happen to be Muslims. So when you look at something like this, I mean, Mike Pence, a lot of people say that he's just really far right and he's way out there. But this man, has done a lot for, the religious rights. And that's why, I believe the president won, the White House because he had the support of the Christians in this country. And this shows you that even Mike Pence, who's a Christian, he sees that we need to fight for all religions, including the Muslim religion. So this is something, a little bit of a, kind of a catch-22 type thing, and people can't look at this and say, oh, well, they're just racist, they hate Muslims, they don't want them in our country. Because at the highest levels, they're fighting to ensure that these people don't go through more ethnic cleansing and genocide.
In your report, you even brought up the fact that the Vice President mentioned that over the past decade, more than 150 Buddhist monks have lit themselves on fire.
Yeah.
Before we move on to something else, you also spoke this Uyghur brother who survived the Chinese re-education camp. Tell us about that one, please.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing with these, a lot of the people who actually are able to escape the region, and if they get to Europe or America, wherever their final stop is, there's a lot of them here. I think the largest population in America is here in Washington, D.C. And these people come here, they flee the religious persecution from China, and then they get daily and sometimes multiple calls a day from China calling them and saying, we know you have family at home, you better come back, we're going to throw them in the re-education camps. If these people have children are thrown into orphanages until they're 12 years old. Even if they have grandparents or aunts and uncles or anybody that can take care of them, they are not allowed to rejoin their families. They push them into these really horrific conditions of these orphanages. So, these people are living in fear on a constant basis, and I think that it's, something for us to all kind of keep in mind that, when we look at, transnational criminals or drug cartels, they use this kind of intimidation to shut up their people that they fight against, or they want a new, pathway over here to get to the United States. They go after family and friends. So when you see that China, who's actually the largest, country population-wise right now, they're actually allowing this to happen, and they're actually encouraging this to happen, ought to be frightful for everybody out there.
Yeah, and you say that reports of recent circumstance show a pattern of abuse, including political imprisonment, torture, disappearance. They're shutting down the mosque, and the Uyghur language is banned from use in schools.
Yeah.
I don't know which one shocks me more, like if you were thinking United States of America, okay, for example, shutting down religious churches or banning, let's say, Spanish from the school.
Yeah.
Well, there would be an uproar.
Yeah, there would be. And again, this is the largest country in the world. And if they're able to do this and allow this to be mainstreamed, which they're doing in their country, what's going to happen to the next, country that's going to say, hey, China does it, it's okay. So I think that, it's, we have to be cognizant of what's going on. I think the president needs to be a little tougher on this situation. And, in the end, if the Chinese government does not want the Muslims or the Christians or what have you in their country, then they actually at least ought to give them their passports and let them go to countries that are willing to take them. these, I mean, majority of these Uyghurs, the women dress like we do here, right? With, like myself, they're not, old school, Muslims. I mean, they're very, like Turkish, they're very secular. So, I mean, it's not like they're trying just to go after a very old school religion. They're going after they just don't believe in religion in that country. And with 1.3 billion people, that's a problem.
Let me throw this out at you, okay? So, United Nations, they have more Muslims voting on the UN. They outnumber everybody. You wonder, are they saying anything about this? Are they going, wait a minute, you can't do this?
Yeah. The UN is starting to get involved. You have Human Rights Watch that's actually starting to get involved. You're seeing some of the universities here in this country starting to come up with action plans and try to educate fellow students on the dire situation happening in China. And I think at this point it's just really getting people to talk about it on air it's tough. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on, so you compete for what you talk about on air. But just trying to get this out there in front of the American people, is a difficult situation. And I think that I just give the vice president a lot of props for doing this, because most would say that he's just a homophobe, he's a xenophobe, and all of these different things. And he's the one that's really kind of leading the charge on this. And that to me is, we got to give him really big props for that. And for the world to see that we're the ones, again, that are out front trying to stop a genocide or an ethnic cleansing, like what happened to the Yazidis in Iraq and what happened with the Kurds in Iran and Iraq. I mean, it just, all of these situations, I mean, America continues to lead. But they throw rocks at us constantly saying, look, you guys are xenophobes and all this, horrific name calling, when we actually are the ones leading the charge on most of these fronts.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. Today is a very, very busy day. We've got Mission 41.
Yeah.
And I see that all over
Yeah.
Fox on the George H.W. Bush funeral processions and all this. But there's a couple of other things. Jim Corey broke a story where the FBI has actually raided a former FBI contractor. This has to do with uranium deals that Hillary got into and how much money the Clinton Foundation got from Russia and Putin involved. And boy, and I'll get back to that one in a moment.
Yeah.
We can talk about Russian collusion.
Yeah.
And the other one now is Jerome Corsi has filed this ethics complaint against Special Counsel Robert Mueller's team.
Yep.
Saying they're trying to force him to give false testimony.
Yep.
And then the other guy says, I guess I will appear, but is it going to be behind closed doors?
Yeah.
There's so much going on.
There's a lot going on with as we see the headline, I think, on Drudge's, the rat needs to be locked up. And that, of course, is, Cohen, who was President Trump's former fixer for certain problems that he had. And they all did things, I mean, I guess he did things that are illegal, but, I've talked to several attorneys and they're saying what Cohen has done and what Mueller has done is actually against the law, because unless the president says that it's okay to break that client-attorney privilege, these people aren't allowed to break the client-attorney privilege. So, and there's, several lawyers that are considering a lawsuit against the Mueller, I don't know what you want to call them now, the witch hunt, I think the president calls it, but, it's just, there's a group of people out there saying, look, we've got that, there's a case here, we're attorneys, and we're watching the code of ethics that we have go down the drain, because apparently it doesn't matter attorney-client privilege, and, that's just, again, that's going to come down to, can we trust anybody? And, you're supposed to be able to trust your attorney to keep your information private and share, what you need to keep your family safe or whatever. So, yeah. Yeah, and so I give Corsi, he's got a lot of guts going out and trying to fight with these swamps, I guess.
I had the privilege of meeting Jerome Corsi a few times whenever George Putnam was doing this show. And he's the guy that wrote the Flip Boat Command and all that John Kerry.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something, though, that a lot of people don't realize. They even bring up now about Russian collusion because Trump wanted to build a Russian Trump Tower somewhere in Pompeo. You know what? He could do that right now if he wanted to.
not against the law, yeah.
My goodness, it's unbelievable.
Well, they're fighting over something that he never even did, and the argument about is, well, Cullen said it happened in January, and in actuality it happened in June, which is still 6 months before the election. So, they're quibbling over a date, and the president was just running for office, and he was pretty much funding his entire campaign on his own, and he continues to lose money on all this, but he's president of the United States, and he's doing it because he loves his country. I don't know how he gets up every morning and carries on with the fight, because every day it's something else, and it's so persnickety and just little minutiae details that mean nothing in the end. So.
And with Mueller, it's like, his FBI judge, I don't know, whoever's doing the indoctrination, for 40 hours plus on every one of these guys,
Yeah.
pounding them. And what did you eat in 1930? Tell us right now, is it this or this or this or this?
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And not fair.
Yeah, and not fair whatsoever. But, I think that, I believe this is going to carry on all throughout the next year. I think that the Democrats are going to get pounded on, that people are just going to turn off news, whatever news they watch anymore, because they're tired of this talk. And as the president continues day by day in the White House, he's making new deals. He's making things happen in this country. And you better believe that the one thing he's working really hard on is getting that wall built down there along the border. And with all of these caravans coming up, he's going to see that that's going to be the winning, ticket for him in 2020. And people are tired of hearing about all of these insignificant details that Mueller and his, swamp creatures want to dredge up about the president. If they had something, the president would have gone through impeachment already. And that's just a fact. So they just continue on with this game, and they do it at their own peril.
Well, yeah, it's on and on and on and on. They
Yeah.
have a song, right?
It is.
Yeah, I think there was. On a more serious note, we've got Mission 41. They're calling it 41st president.
Yeah.
President George H.W. Bush. And you'll be in Washington, D.C., but I don't know if he's arrived already.
He has.
Yeah, okay.
He's arrived. I'll go up to the Capitol Rotunda and I'll pay my respects. Obviously, he was I covered President Bush 41, and I was actually at the rally and was covering it when he pulled up his wallet and he said, "No new taxes." I actually was there in Yorba Linda when he made that. I guess he made a promise and he decided that he was going to, break it and try to balance the budget. And it didn't work out too well for him. It worked out a little better for Clinton, because then the budget was balanced after those taxes were enacted. But he was a civil servant to this country from 17 when he enlisted in the Navy to fight World War II. He was an honorable man. We're seeing people that even disagree with the politics of his presidency say that he was a stand-up guy, he was a good guy, he did the right thing, and that's refreshing. And then when you go on Twitter, and a lot of us do, and we see what the other side's saying. Some of the vile things they say about this person, you're just like, you can't win with these people. It just is very sad when they go out. The families had an incredible loss. They're grieving. Let's let them go through the process. We're going to see this week. This week's going to be an unbelievable week here in Washington, D.C. People will be all paying their respects. And President Trump also, for 30 days. That flag is going to be at half-mast for 30 days for honoring the 41st President of the United States, which is something that's, frankly never been done. And people actually are taking a little bit notice of this, and obviously Trump will be visiting and actually attending the funeral. It was, in Bush 41's papers that he wanted the president to be there. And so, this is what people do. They kind of, they get together, they talk about, the good times and what happened. And this president, 41 was always a happy guy. You didn't see him really moping. He was always a happy guy when he was out, He had to do it. Yeah, always, and that's refreshing in today. I don't know how he would fare in today's politics, but, then, I mean, it was nice to see that, he enjoyed what he did. And the media at least wasn't attacking him as much as it's been in the last, I don't know, 3 years maybe it's been really bad.
Well, the public in Washington, D.C., 7:30 p.m. tonight is whenever they open it up.
Yeah.
Until 7 a.m. Wednesday in the Capitol Rotunda.
Yeah.
Interesting, too, is that besides the flag at half-mast for 30 days, Trump signed this executive order directing federal agencies and departments to close Wednesday.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the first.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, I mean, everybody over at the Pentagon, they are on cloud 9. They're like, we got the day off.
Nice thing to do, yes.
Yeah.
We're going to take our break and come back and wrap it up with Kimberly Dvorak, Dvorak. She's on Facebook right now live, and I'm getting part of it. We have computer problems. That's a whole new story. But remember the website, report.com. CRN, Jeff Launer here with my guest, Kimberly Dvorak, Dvorak, streaming live on Periscope, Facebook. You'll find her on YouTube occasionally. Back to the funeral. It's interesting that Bush is going to be buried. It'll be Thursday.
Yeah.
Behind the George H.W. Bush Presidential Library and Museum, and that's located at Texas A&M University. And that's where his first wife, Lady Barbara,
Yep.
and his daughter, Robin.
Yep.
And it's amazing how many people forgot that he had that daughter because he
Yeah.
died at such a young age.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, as we've heard, the story since his passing on Friday evening, that, that was a situation that, devastated the family. And a lot of people said that it devastated the president much more than Barbara. And if it wasn't for Barbara saying, look, we've got to move on. We have other children. We have got to continue on with this. And, he really relied on her to be the rock in the situation so they could actually get through this. And, I mean, it's, I don't know what it would be like to lose a child. I mean, when you talk to people who've lost a child, I mean, a lot of times if they're, married, marriages break up over this because of the grieving process. But in this case, it was Barbara that held the torch and pushed the family forward and made sure that, they would one day again be reunited with their daughter. And this is a tribute, and I think it makes it, as hard it is, I think, for the family, I think it makes it a little easier knowing that they're all going to be reunited. And now she's going to get to spend time with her parents that she didn't have here on Earth. So that to me is just such a lovely, memory, and something that would make it, I think, a lot easier for the family as they, get through this week, which is going to be, a pretty rough week here.
Yeah, I know that most parents who lose a child, I think the largest percentage always say, no, we're supposed to go before the children.
Yeah.
And she was 3 years old, 1953. Another interesting thing, very little time left, but, Bush did this jumping out of an airplane twice, and I think the last time he was 80 years old.
Yeah.
And that's when he started rolling.
Yeah, he had a bucket list. It looks like he went out. He knew he had a little bit of time to complete that bucket list, and he went out and did it. And and kudos to him for doing it, not having the fear. It's one of the things I'd like to do one day. So hopefully, I'll wait until. But yeah, yeah. But it's a tribute to the way he lived his life, though. He was never afraid to take a risk. He wanted to live life every day. And I think as we watch this all unfold through Thursday, you're going to see a man that lived life, that loved his family, that loved this country, that served this country, and now he can rest in peace because the mission is complete.
Yeah, and I actually went over to CNN for about 30 seconds. I was just curious earlier this morning to see if, as they were loading him onto the plane in Houston, to see if they were covering, or if they were making live tracks or whatever. So they were actually covering it, and I said, that's good. They, figured they'd go crazy on it.
Yeah, well, Wait till 43, maybe a different story. But I think age, with all of these, the presidents, it's a small club. These presidents, and they all embrace one another. Whether it's Obama, Clinton, Bush's, and eventually Trump will be part of that club as well. It's a small club, and they realize the pressures and what they have to do on a day-to-day basis. And in the end, they all kind of get together, and they know they all, were part of something very special, and that's the United States. So.
All right. Hey, Kimberly, thank you very much. Enjoyed our visit
Okay.
today. Kimberly DeVore.
All right.
And it's the KD Report. And make sure you spell that last name. DVORAK. Okay. Kimberly.
Alrighty. See you later, Chuck.
Thank you.
Bye.